This is the book of Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 11. In those days there went out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, Let us go up, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. I like to give all praises and glory and honor to Almighty Yahweh, Yahweh Shai. I like to give all praises and glory and honor to Almighty Yahweh, Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the men in GMS who rule well. Peace and salutation to the hopeful elect. This is Brother Boaz on the set once again. There's two Gentiles in the Bible, okay? There's a Golem Gentiles, which is talking about the other nations, and there's a Gentiles that has a Gentile state of mind, okay? If you do not read the Apocrypha, okay, you cannot get this understanding that's in the New Testament. Paul was talking about the Gentiles they were Israelites, but they're in a Gentile state of mind, okay? We're gonna go into this lesson today. I want you to get a pencil and a pen and a piece of paper and follow along with these scriptures, okay? The Gentiles we're going to go into the Gentiles of Israel, okay? They were two Gentiles. As you see here, they're Gentiles with a Gentile state of mind. Okay, let's read it again. This is the book of Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 11. In those days there went out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, Let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. So this device pleased them well. Then certain of the people were so forward, wherein they went to the king who gave them license to do after the ordinance of the heathen. Okay, so they went to the king and they gave them license to do ordinance after the heathen. Okay, whereupon they built a exercise at Jerusalem according to the customs of the heathen, and they themselves and made themselves uncircumcised and forsook the holy covenant and joined themselves to the heathen and were sold to do mischief. Okay, so Paul was talking about the Israelites that are in a Gentile state of mind, okay? He's not talking about heathens, okay? He's not talking about heathens, okay? The heathens are in Yahweh Yahweh Shai are nothing, okay? They're just a drop in the bucket, okay? Let's get it. The book of Second Ezra, chapter 4, verse 23. For it was not my mind to be curious of the high things, but in such as pass by us, namely, wherefore Israel is given up as a reproach to the heathen. Okay, that Israel was given an approach to the heathen. Okay, so how is Paul talking about the heathen of all the other nations? No, the heathen in the New Testament were the Gentiles, were Israel in a Gentile state of mind. So the book of Romans was written to the Israelites in a Greek state of mind. Okay, the book of Ephesians, the book of Colossians, the book of Thessalonians. These are all Israelites, okay? They're Israelites in a state of mind. Christians don't understand this because they don't have the Apocrypha, okay? They don't have the Apocrypha. That's one of the reasons why they took the Apocrypha out of the Bible, okay? It's the whole Bible is pertaining to the Israelites. The whole Bible is pertaining to the Israelites. It's not talking about nobody else. Okay? It's not talking about nobody else. Okay? So if you don't understand that, you won't get the clarification that the Bible is conveying. Okay? Follow along with me. The book of Psalms 147, verse 19. He gives his message to his people, his instructions and laws to Israel. He has not done this for any other nations. For any other nations, they do not know his laws. Okay, they don't know his laws. Okay, he has not did this with any other nation. Okay, these are Israelites. Okay, the Bible is pertaining to the Israelites. That's what the Bible is. That's what the Bible is conveying. Okay, and if you don't have the book of Maccabees or the second Ezra, you won't understand this. Okay, follow along with me. Okay, the book of Ezekiel, chapter 44, verse 9. I, the sovereign Yahweh, declared that no uncircumcised foreigner, no one who disobeys me, will enter my temple, not even to the foreigners who live among the people of Israel. Okay? It's not talking about the Israelites. It's not talking about heathens that are just other nations, Chinese, okay, Indians, okay, East Indians, okay, the so-called white man, Africans. No, it's talking about the Israelites who are so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians. Okay, that's what this Bible is talking about. That's what the Bible is talking about. Okay, the heathen can't enter into his congregation. Okay, one moment here. It's not talking about the. It's not talking about the. It's not talking about the Gentiles. Okay, it's not talking about the Gentiles. It's only talking about the Israelites. The book of Lamentations, chapter 1, verse 10. The enemies robbed her of all her treasures. She saw them enter the temple itself, where Yahweh has forbidden Gentiles to go. Okay, that's Lamentations chapter 1, verse 10. Okay, the Gentiles are forbidden to go. Okay, they can't go. They're not of Israel. Okay, it's all for the Israelites. Okay, it's all for the Israelites. The New Testament was talking about the Israelites that took on a Greek mindset. Okay, it's basically how we have so-called Negroes that live the way of the so-called white man on this side. That's a parallel, if you will. Okay, it's like how you have Negroes that took on the so-called white man's lifestyle on this side. Okay, that forsook the Israelite way of life. Okay. The book of Second Ezra, chapter 4, verse 23. For it was not my mind to be curious of the high things, but as for such as pass by us, namely Wherefore Israel is given up as a reproach to the heathen, as for what cause the people whom thou hast loved is given over to the ungodly nations, and why the law is of our forefather is brought to naught, and the written covenant is come to no effect, and we pass away out of the world as grasshoppers, our lives as astonishment and fear, and we are not worthy to obtain mercy. What will he then do with his name whereby we are called of these things that I ask? Okay, so once again, it's only for the Israelites. It's only for the Israelites, okay? It's not pertaining to any other nation, okay? When this thing goes down after World War III and the nuclear bombs get detonated, they're going to go into slavery, okay? That's what this is about. The book of Psalms 149, verse 5. Let Yahweh's people rejoice in their triumph and sing joyfully all night long. Let them shout aloud as they praise Yahweh with a sharp sword in their hands. We're going to take these nations and put them into slavery to defeat the nations and to punish the peoples, to bind their kings in chains and their leaders in chains of iron, to punish the nations Yahweh has commanded. This is the victory of Yahweh's people. Praise Yahweh. Okay, so these are Israelites in a Gentile state of mind. That's what the New Testament is conveying to you. Okay, that's what the Christian church, that's why they took the Apocrypha out of the Bible, okay? That's one of the reasons, okay? And it also deems the so-called white man, it also identifies the so-called white man in Ezra, okay? That's why they took it out of the Bible, okay? This is why. The book of Acts, chapter 6, verse 1. Sometime later, as a number of disciples kept growing, there was a quarrel between the Greek speaking Jews. Okay, there was a quarrel with the Greek speaking Jews and the native Jews. The Greek speaking Jews claimed that their widows were being neglected in the daily distribution of funds. Okay, so once again, it's the Greek speaking Jews. Once again, it's a Greek speaking Jews. That's what this is about. That's what this is all about, okay? So when you see the Gentile in the Bible that Paul is ministering unto, they're in a Gentile state of mind, okay? They're going to go into slavery. The Gentiles, as the so-called white man, Chinese, Asian, African, they're going to go straight into slavery, okay? And we're going to rule them with a rod of iron, okay? We're going to rule them with a rod of iron. The book of Acts, chapter 13, verse 1. In the church, Antioch, there was some prophets and teachers, Barabbas, Simon, called Black, okay? Ludius from Cyrene, Medius, who has been brought up with the governor Herod, and Saul, who was called black or niger, okay, or nigger, okay, in the King James. This is a GNT version, so it reads a little bit differently, okay. So it's these Gentiles, okay, are Israelites, okay, in the New Testament, okay, they're Israelites. Okay, in a new age, when Christ comes, he's going to reign for 1,000 years with the Israelites and his people. That's what the Bible is conveying. It's not talking about the so-called white man. The so-called white man is going to go down, okay? His setup is going to go down. He's going to get eradicated, and America's going to be destroyed, okay? There's nothing going to be over here in America no more, okay? It's going to be a desolate wasteland, okay? That's what this is about. The book of Isaiah, chapter 14, verse 4. I want you to get a pen and paper and write these scriptures down. The book of Isaiah, chapter 14, verse 1. Yahweh will once again be merciful to his people, Israel, and will choose them as his own. He will let them live in their own land again, and foreigners will come and live there with them. Many nations will help the people of Israel return to the land which Yahweh given them, and there the nations will serve Israel as slaves. Okay, they're going to serve them as slaves. Okay, and this is going to be forever. Okay, once this thing goes down, that's why it's important for you to come back into your nationality of who you are now while you still can. Okay, those who was once captured by Israel will now be captors by Israel, and the people of Israel will rule over who once oppressed them. Okay, that's mainly the so-called white man. Okay, the so-called white man is going to be serving us. Okay, they're going to be serving us as handmaids and bond. Okay, that's what this is about. That's what this is all about. Okay. the Israel the Israel that is talking about, it's not talking about it's not talking about Gentiles, okay? That any other Gentiles could get in. No, Yahweh Shai is only for his people. The book of Leviticus, chapter 25, verse 43. Do not treat them harshly, but obey Yahweh. If you need slaves, you may buy them from the nations around you. Okay, so you could treat them harshly. Okay, you could treat those slaves harshly. Okay, you may also buy children of the foreigners who are living among you. Such children born in your land may become your property, and you may leave them as inheritance to your children, you whom they must serve you as long as they live. But you may not treat any Israelite harshly. Okay? You may not treat any Israelite harshly. Okay? So they're going to be slaves in the kingdom, okay? They're going straight into slavery, okay? After World War III and a nuclear holocaust happens, okay? America's going to shoot off their missiles. Russia, China, Iran, Pakistan, North Korea are going to shoot missiles on America, making it totally desolate, okay? Which the Bible is calling that the day of the Lord. Okay, that's the day when a white man falls out of rulership, okay? Then everybody's gonna be shocked, like I said, wow, the so-called white man fell out of power, okay? They fell out of rulership. They're gonna be shocked in that day, okay? They're gonna hear it in that day. Book of Jeremiah. The book of Jeremiah, chapter 49, verse 17. Yahweh says the destruction that will come on Edom will be so terrible that everyone who passes by will be shocked and terrified. Everyone's going to be shocked, like, wow, that happened to the so called white man. He used to run the world, okay? Everyone's going to be shocked in that day. They're going to be shocked, damn, did that happen to the so called white man? Did he get annihilated? Did he fall out of rulership? Okay, because right now this is a white man's heaven right now. Okay, he's living in his heaven. Okay, underneath the so-called Illuminati. Okay, the so-called Illuminati who runs the world. Okay, they're going to be shocked in that day when the so-called white man falls out of power. Okay, so the Gentiles in the Bible are talking about the Greek-speaking Jews. Okay, that's what it's talking about. That's what it's talking about. That's what the Bible's conveying here. Turn to the book of Romans. If you got your Bible, follow along. The book of Romans, chapter 9, verse 1. I am speaking the truth. I belong to Christ, and I do not lie. My conscience rules by the Holy Spirit also assures me that I am not lying when I say how great is my sorrow, how endless the pain in my heart for my people and my own flesh and blood. Okay, the Israelites. Okay, Paul was an Israelite. For let's go to the book of their own flesh and blood. What is he talking about, his own flesh and blood? What does he mean? The book of Romans 11, verse 1. I ask then, did Yahweh reject his own people? Certainly not. I myself am a Israelite, a descendant of Abraham, a member of the tribe of Benjamin. Okay, these Israelites in the Bible, they are Israelites, the Gentiles. The Gentiles in the Bible are Israelites, okay? They they took the Apocrypha out the Bible. So if you don't have that history of it, you can't understand that, okay? You can't understand that transaction. When I say how great is my sorrow, my endless, the pain of my heart for my people, my own flesh and blood, for their sakes, I could wish that I myself were under Yahweh's curse and separated from Christ. They are Yahweh's people. He made them his children and revealed his glory to them. He made his covenant with them and gave them the law that they have the true worships, they have received Yahweh's promise. They are descendants from the famous Hebrew ancestry, and Christ, as a human being, belongs to their race. May Yahweh, who rules over all, be praised forever. Amen. That's what this is about. That's what this is all about, okay? And if you don't, and if you don't study the apocrypha, you don't know this truth, okay? That's why we have the apocrypha right here, the apocrypha. Okay, if you don't have this apocrypha, if you're not studying, you won't understand this, okay? The book of Second Ezra, chapter 6, verse 56. As for the other people which comes from Adam, thou hast said that they are nothing. Okay, so all the other nations are nothing. Okay, they're nobodies. Okay, they're like thin. They're just air. Thou hast said they are nothing, but be like unto spittle, and has likened every abundance of them as a drop that falleth from a vessel. Okay, if you got a bucket of water, okay, and a drop falls from the water, you're not worried about that little drop. Okay, you're not worried about that drop. Okay, that's what Yahweh looks at the other nations. That's why there's a controversy with Israel. That's why you think it's a controversy with Israel, okay? Why you think it's a controversy with us, okay? Why you think we catch so much hell? Because they know that we're chosen. We're the chosen of Yahweh, Yahweh Shai, okay? We're the chosen. The book of Isaiah. Okay, one moment. For the controversy of Zion, Bible verse.
The controversy of Zion is a biblical phrase, referring to the ongoing conflict around Jerusalem, Israel, and Jewish people.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 34, verse 8. This is a time when Yahweh will rescue Zion and take vengeance upon her enemies, okay? The controversy of Zion, okay? Why you think it's so much controversy with so-called black people, okay? Catching hell in society, a last hire, first hire, police brutality, X, Y, and Z, catching hell, okay? This is not going to happen in days to come. Every day that goes by, we're one day closer to this man's demise, okay? The so-called white man that you know in the Bible, he's going to get eradicated, okay? He's not going to make it out with his life, okay? He can't be saved, okay? They're going to be slaves, okay? The Gentiles in the Bible, that those are Israelites. Those are Israelites, the Gentiles in the Bible. Okay, one moment. The book of Isaiah chapter 40 verse 15. Yahweh, the nations are nothing. Okay, so you see this, okay? Write these scriptures down, okay? Yahweh says the nations are nothing, okay? The nations are nothing. Yahweh, the nations are nothing, no more than a drop of water. The distant islands are as light as dust, okay? So these nations are nothing, okay? It's pertaining to the Israelites, okay? The blessings, all the blessings, okay? Right now we was underneath the curses, okay? Well, our curses are going to be fulfilled. Okay, we're coming off our punishment. Okay, this so-called white man messed up. He's going to be eradicated. Like I said before, the so-called white man will be eradicated. Okay, you can't save this devil. Okay, you can't save this devil. He's not going to make it out with his life. He will, when this thing goes down and World War III, he won't make it out with his life when this thing goes down. The book of Isaiah chapter 40 verse 1. Come, my people, says your power. Comfort them. Encourage the people of Jerusalem. Tell them that they have suffered long enough and their sins are now forgiven. I have punished them in full for all their sins. Okay, so our punishment is up now. Our punishment is up, and that's why you see America, as you know it today, is going down. Okay, America's going down. Okay, gas prices is up, food prices is up. Everyone's suffering. Okay, everyone's suffering. Okay, everyone's catching hell. Okay, it's usually over some money problems. Okay, that's what this is about. Okay. So the Israelites that are Greeks, they're Greek speaking Jews, okay? They were Greek speaking Jews, okay? Let's go to the book of Matthew. Who did Christ come for? Who did Christ come for? The let's see. The book of Matthew chapter 10 verse 5. And these 12 men were sent out by Yahweh with them and following instructions. Do not go to any Gentile territory or any Samaritan town. Okay, so don't go to do not go to the Gentiles. Okay, the other nations. That's what Christ is talking about. Okay, that's who Christ was talking about. Do not go to any other Gentile towns. Okay, instead, you are to go to the lost sheep of the people of Israel who are lost, okay? Who are lost, who lost their nationality, okay? Who lost their identity, the Israelites, okay? And you got these false Jews claiming to be Jews, okay? That's why the so called white man has a heavy tab to pay for when this thing goes down. That's why he has a heavy tab to pay for. Okay, that's why this man, as Cain, been running from his judgment. Okay, he's running from it. It's too much for him to bear. Okay, that's why Yahweh placed a mark upon him. Okay, it's too much for this man to bear. Okay, this man got a heavy tab to pay for. Okay, he put us in slavery. He took our nationality, stripped us of our name. Okay, let me ask you a question. What Native American Indian you know they almost eradicated them? Okay, this is going to happen to the so-called white man. Verse 7, go and preach the kingdom of heaven is near. Okay, when you see the men on the highway and byways, they came down every kingdom that went down. The prophets went out and prophesied. Okay, every kingdom that went down. In the days of Noah, they did it. Okay, in the days of Noah, they did it. They did it in the Babylonian Empire, the Roman Empire. Whenever you see it, the prophets went out. The kingdom went down. Now you see the prophets are coming out with America. Okay, they're going down. America is going to be eradicated. It's going to be destroyed. Okay, that's what this thing is about. Okay, so the Israelites in the Bible, the Gentiles in the Bible are talking about Israelites. Go and preach the kingdom of heaven is near. Okay, the kingdom of heaven is near. Near. Heal the sick. Bring the dead back to life. How you bringing the dead back to life? With this doctrine. Okay, with this truth. Okay, those who suffer from dreadful skin diseases and drive out demons, you have received without paying, so give without paying. Don't charge for this doctrine. Okay, that's what this thing is about. Don't charge the doctrine. Don't make merchandise of the doctrine. Okay, that's what this thing is about. Okay, coming back into your nationality. Okay, so the Gentiles in the Bible, once again, to recap, they are Gentiles, that they are Israelite in a Gentile state of mind. Okay, they are Gentiles in a state of mind and in a mind. The book of John. The book of John, chapter 7, verse 35. Really, this says the Jews authorities said among themselves, where is he going to go, so we should we shall not find him? Will he go to the Greeks? Okay, the Gentiles, the Greek cities where there are people living, where our people are living. Okay, I'll read that from the top. Okay, these are Gentiles, these are Israelites in a Gentile state of mind. Okay, that's what this is about. That's what this thing is about. Would he go to the Greeks where our people are living? Okay, the Gentiles are Israelites. Okay, the Jewish authorities, really that means Jew right there. This is a GNT. Authorities said they mess with the words among themselves. Where is he about to go, so that we shall not find him? Will he go to the Greeks, cities where our people live, and teach the Greeks. Okay, would he go to the city to teach the Greeks, our people? Okay, the Israelites. Okay, now you have Israelites that are in other nations that look like those other nations. Like you may have a so-called white man that look like an Israelite that looks white, but he's an Israelite. You may have a Chinese man, okay? You may have an Arab man that look white, okay? But they are Israelites, okay? Because this thing is about the spirit. Let's go into it. That's the so-called catch 22. The book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 14. Those who are led by Yahweh spirit are the children, are Yahweh's children. So if your spirit, if you believe in your heart, if you're a white man, okay, because Edom is a hot topic. If you're a white man and if you believe that America's going to be destroyed, that Yahweh Shai is going to put white people into slavery, okay, and if you believe that the Israelites are so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American, and that you might be an Israelite, okay? And if you're a white person that believes that way, okay? Because it's a spirit, okay? Your spirit, if it's attracted to this doctrine, okay? It all goes back to this doctrine. That's what it goes back to. It all goes back to this doctrine. Okay, one moment. Okay, one moment here. The book of Revelation, chapter 7, verse 9. After this I saw, and there was an enormous crowd. No one could count all the people. They were that were from every race, tribe, nation, from every race, tribe, and nation, and they stood in front of the throne of the Lamb, dressed in white robes, and they were holding palm branches in their hand. Now those are the Israelite foreigners. Okay, there's a catch 22. Those are the Israelite foreigners. Okay, that was sanctified to be saved from those nations. Okay, those are the Israelite foreigners, okay, that was sanctioned to be saved from the second death, which is thermonuclear destruction. Okay, they were they were holding palm branches in their hands. They called out in a loud voice, salvation comes from our power who sits on the throne and from the Lamb. Okay, so those are the other nations, okay, who are Israelites, okay, that may look Chinese, that may look white, that may look like an African, but they're Israelites, okay? That's what this thing is about, okay? And if you don't have the Apocrypha, if you don't have the Apocrypha, you won't understand that. You have to get the Apocrypha so you can understand that, okay? And study from the Apocrypha, okay? So hopefully that answers your question. I like to give all praises and glory to Almighty Yahweh Yahushai. Shalom.